So, here is a video where I watch you play and criticize you uh, ruthlessly. But actually, in watching through it, it was a lot of fun because I didn't know anything about red mages until I read through a couple guides and watched a couple red mages actually do it. So it was actually really interesting to see. And I probably should record myself so that I could go back and do this with my play because I saw all kinds of things that I bet I would catch with my play. But I noticed two big things when I was looking through that will dramatically bump up your DPS. Like, because one thing is, so you're sitting here, let's see, so your average, your high is 4.3k, and then beginning of February, 4.7k was 50%. It'd probably be more like 4.9k now. So you're really only like 400, 500 away from like being top 50% on this one. And there were like two big things that I saw that would like dramatically increase your DPS. The first being one that Dean pointed out earlier. When I was looking at like 99%ers, they all have like, you know, ridiculous uptime. And your uptime was consistently difficult. But I saw in the replay several of the reasons why that is. And we will go look at that. But the first thing that I think will dramatically improve your DPS is in looking through several guides and watching several top level red mages. You really could improve on your opener. Your opener is just a few tweaks away from being having a lot more potency, and I'll show you what I mean. So for this fight particularly, you have to kind of change up your opener because I'm not going to use this one to talk about all the different like opening things that I've been seeing that most red mages run, but the big difference that this fight does is, I'm sure you know, like you usually precast your first like Ver Arrow or Ver Thunder, and on this fight you can't precast it because you can't select the Chadernook to precast. And I'm only showing this one. This isn't actually y'all's clear, so I'm not going to use this one later. But I'm using it to show that you don't have this cast time here before the first Howl interrupts it to get the Ver Thunder out. So this is just basically to demonstrate that you have to change things up. So then I'm going to go now to your your actual opening on the clear and talk about kind of the opening that I've been seeing and the strongest opening by the numbers versus what you have currently. So openers, I've seen across the board there's kind of this one cohesive opener that seems to be the most consistently kind of supported opener, and you're executing the majority of the foundation of it with a couple tweaks that would dramatically change the DPS output, and I will show you what that is. Now, first off, the regular opener starts with a, you know, kind of slow cast of Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow. Obviously that has to be changed in this fight, and so I just wanted to quickly talk about the two options there. You could either, what I see most commonly is cast Jolt 2. You can execute that before the demonic howl goes off and disrupts you, and then you can go on to, you know, do your dual cast of the Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow. Or you could, if you really wanted to swift cast Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow right off the bat, you could just, instead of using swift cast, which is what you're actually about to do, you're going to swift cast right off the bat in Ver Thunder, I believe. And what would be better if you really wanted to swift cast that is to Vercure or Veracure or whatever it is, either yourself or an ally, and then use the dual cast when it lands to do the Ver Arrow or Ver Thunder. And that could possibly work well if you time it quickly enough to then get your Jolt off or your Ready proc off before the Demonic Howl, which is possible, I think. I don't know, you'd have to play around with that. It might just be better for timing and whatnot to Jolt too. I don't know. Something to play around with, but those are kind of the two options. But I would not use the swift cast as you use here, because swift cast is obviously, really important. And, I mean, you could use it to have quickly finished off your gauge here later, which you'll see. You get like really close. You could have swift casted something really quickly and then just gone into your melee combo, rather than having to cast out something and kind of finish this whole combo thing. Or, there's parts of this fight where swift cast would really come in handy for making sure that you're keeping almost 100% uptime. But the most important change here, beyond just your opener, there's like that first move, is your precast buffs. I have seen consistently what everyone uses is they pop accelerate, and then diversion. And so first off, you're not popping diversion, and you encroach upon page a lot. I didn't see you pop diversion much at all, or I didn't see it throughout it. So, and you encroach on page several times, so I would get a bit more friendly with that button. But the other thing is, what you do here is you pop accelerate, and then you pop embolden. And this is bad for two reasons. The first being Embolden's most powerful phase of the first 4 seconds, or 5 seconds, I think it's 4 seconds, where it has the biggest impact. And you don't even do anything during the first 4 seconds of Embolden being up. And you are not getting very much value, because a lot of it is like prepping up for your main attacks, which are really, you want your big combos to be what's being empowered by Embolden. And so usually Embolden gets weaved in after your enchanted riposte, or whatever the hell that's called, which throughout the rest of the fight you always weave it in there. So just make sure that you weave it in there for the opener too, because that's how I see it consistently. And then the other thing you pop pre-fight is you pop the potion pre-fight, and I see everyone actually popping the potion by weaving it in before the last kind of dual casted VTVA, before the dual cast that you're going to weave in the Manification and the Korra core into. Because you want the potion to be overlapping with your big heavy hitting nukes on the back end of your melee combo, and your potion actually wears out halfway through towards the first half of your melee combo, which is where all your DPS lies. So you want to hold off on popping the potion and weave it in later after a dual cast. So here, you do the swift cast of their Thunder that I was talking about. You do weave in the Contra 60 and the Fleche, which is good. And you were actually pretty good at keeping on top of that. And so that was something that was really good. The rest of your opener, you do pretty standardly, save for there's two things that most people have been weaving in that's free damage that you're leaving out. And so I'll highlight that really quickly. So after this, you do your ready cast with the Verifier, and then you do your dual cast of the Ver Arrow, and then you jolt 2. Now, normally you've been shifted because of the swift cast. So normally after you do the Contra 6 and Fleche weave, you're going to want to weave in something else, but here it's going to be backed up 1 because your gauge isn't going to reach there at the same time. So you're doing Jolt 2, and then you swift cast your Ver Arrow. Okay, so after this, what you want to weave in is a Corpse of Corpse and Mana Shift for the Bard. Or at least, well, so for the Corpse of Corpse, it's free damage, because when you weave in your Manification later, that's going to reset your Corpse of Corpse and your displacement. So in one dual cast off global cooldown, you want to set of off global cooldowns, you want to weave in the Corpse of Corpse, and then the next one you want to weave in the displacement. So you get that free damage before you pop the Manification later. So here you would want to pop the Corpse of Corpse. The Mana Shift, I imagine, is probably actually party preference. Everything I've seen is that you want to almost on cooldown be Mana Shifting your Bard, and this is around the stage in the fight with the Bard starts to lose mana, so you can keep them up. And you'll see actually very quickly, I mean, Dapper's about to have no mana. I don't know if if y'all want the mana shifts for something else, so I don't. That's a kind of a raid white thing. But you would then, you know, ready proc after popping those two within there, because that's free damage you're missing on now. You Ver Stone and then, you know, swift dual cast your Ver Thunder. And then after this one would be when you weave in the displacement. And this is where you weave in the potion, because you're about to go into your melee combo. And so you want to weave in your potion here. So there's one possibility where you realize your gauge isn't going to be there, so you could just weave in the displacement, and then the next one just weave in the potion, because double weaving a potion does slightly set you off the global cooldown apparently. So, but well, if you had swift cast up, all I'm about to explain, you would be able to now go into melee in the next round. So you would weave in displacement and then weave in your potion. Okay, so here you go impact, but this is what I was talking about, where like swift cast has so much power, because instead of impact, because what's going to happen is you're going to impact, and then you're going to dual cast the one of the Vers, like Ver Thunder or something like that, and then you're going to have to do another one to get the thing up. But imagine at 34 and 34, if you could have just swift casted the Ver Thunder and then dual casted the Ver Arrow here instead of impact, and then dual casted a Ver Thunder and then done something else. I think I know what you do. You jolt 2, is that it? Yeah, you do jolt 2 and then waste dual cast. So that's like 2 global cooldowns behind getting to there. So what you could do here is you could pop the swift cast and get that in 2 global cooldowns rather than the 4 that you're about to do it. And then go into your melee phase. So your melee phase goes pretty well. The one caveat I would add to it, you don't weave the Embolden in after the Enchanted Riposte, because you've already used the Embolden, which would be one change. But you do have good use of the Accelerando and that kind of thing, but a Fletche is about to be up, and it takes you a while to kind of weave that in, and you want to get those weaved in pretty quickly. Also, you have an impact up, and later you're going to end up using a Jolt 2 instead of the impact. And one thing I was seeing as like a big thing that everyone was highlighting is one of the major things for improving Redmage DPS is avoiding using Jolt 2 at all possible. Like whenever you can use impact over Jolt 2 or swift cast to override having to use Jolt 2 or anything, that's big boons into Redmage DPS. But other than that, it all goes pretty well. There's one big moment though here. Yeah. These are up. The Ver Holy, like your big nuke on the back end, you have up for a while before you hit them. Like you never pop these. I believe they're instant too, so you could even run while hitting these. And this is these little moments right here where you're like running around and not hitting things. These are where the uptime starts to happen, because it's quite a while before you hit them. Yeah, and there it goes, right there. So that was quite a bit of time before you hit the whatever that is, Ver Flare, or the big nuke at the end of the melee combo. Ver Flare, yeah, that's it. So yeah, it'd be a lot more on top of those cooldowns will really kind of boost it up as well. So speaking to keeping uptime on the boss, here is one of the big moments where I think you lose a lot of uptime. And so kind of just to assess what's about to happen, you have just used impact and you're about to dual cast the Ver Arrow, which is about to give you the 80-80 you need to then pop your melee combo. What you're about to do, another thing to assess, and here's the important part, is that he is releasing. And so you now know, okay, he's about to go from here to here. And so Corpse on Corpse is not necessary for the combo, it's just the gap closer that you started out. So what I would do is, since you're about to pop a dual cast, you can walk forward after you pop the dual cast. You start out the melee combo, and then when he moves, you can weave in your Corpse on Corpse to then continue it and keep perfect uptime throughout the duration of it. What you do is instead, like as soon as you hit that, you weave in the Corpse on Corpse, and then the release is about to hit. So you hit your 2, and then you have a lot of downtime here. You're hitting the 3, hitting the 3, you have to walk over, and then that's a lot of wasted time. And I mean, it doesn't feel like much, but those are the little things that add up to all the like off time. Another thing to note is if you look at your hate, you were consistently around here, which is going to have as the warrior, make a plea here, is going to make Paige constantly be, shifting to adjust and try and gain hate back, and you have yet to push this little green button, which is really your friend. Like, I really would make your tank players love you so much. So I would push that button from time to time just for funsies. The other thing, I noticed Accelerate stays off for a while here. So you want to like weave that in on cooldown, which usually you've been pretty good about throughout this fight. Here's another thing that was contributing to some of the lack of uptime was interrupted cast. So you see here, you run over here, you cast Fair Fire, that's great, and then you're going to run back over. You need to start running now to get over. If you're not going to Swift Cast, which you don't have Swift Cast up, which I'm not sure what it was used for earlier, but you're not going to have it up because it's 4 seconds down. You need to be over there immediately once this global cooldown is off so that you can stand still, because I think you're still running. And what happens is, because you're still running when you started, it interrupts. I couldn't see what he was streaming, but he was streaming the Demonic Shear, so that shouldn't have hit you. Yeah, I think it was a running thing from what I've seen. So I would try saving Swift Cast for the moving moments in the fight, or just be very on top of your movements and lining those up. Another note, you do a lot of raises, which is great raid-wide utility, and it hurts your uptime. So that is an area where your uptime is not going to be 100%, but good on you. So the only other things I wanted to talk about in terms of the downtime was there were just a few spots right around this phase of the fight where there's a little bit of flusteredness that caused some there's just resulted in a bit of downtime. So like here the painting's happening, and when you go to paint, rather than like weaving the painting in kind of thing off of cooldown, you just stop casting things. So you're casting off cooldown, it's going well.
Paint now.
Okay, and see like paint now. And during this there's just nothing being casted. You're painting, still nothing being casted. Still nothing. Okay, then you weave in, so you do a weaved move, but really you need to have done a global cooldown move, get that started, and then weaved in off of your dual cast. You start your impact, okay, and you go on. You also, during this part, lose track of your gauge. It gets a little imbalanced at one point, and that causes, I mean, you know what happens when it gets imbalanced. So I would just say, like, that part is a little flustered for you, but I mean, I think that'll be easy to clean up. And here's the other thing I wanted to point out. Puddles are about to happen, and then here you use Swift Cast just to get out another Ver Thunder quickly. And I would argue that you probably want to hold the Swift Cast in case you become the puddle target so that you can Swift Cast, use a move, like use your ready check, which is or ready proc, which is going to be what ends up happening.
Tank Buster.
So like yeah, there you swift cast your Bear Thunder. Here you impact, and right after you swift cast, you get targeted.
Puddles
for a
are
puddle,
coming under some of you.
and then you are running without casting this entire time. Which ideally you would be, you know, casting combos throughout that. Because if you could have swift casted your ready proc, you could have ready procced, then you could have dual casted, and you could have been doing uptime instead of all that downtime throughout that. And then here is one of the big reasons why the uptime was so low. You're unfortunately like get clipped by the wave and die, which that's obviously going to hurt your uptime.
I got him.
So, you know, that's going to be hard. So all of that being said, like despite those minor things, I was looking through all of it, trying to be a little bitch to pinpoint every little thing that could possibly happen. And I will say I was very impressed with how well you were like managing your rotations. You were actually very on top of your rotations outside of those things. I think the big things will really be like changing your potion slash embolden timing at the beginning, and then being a little bit more on top of weaving in your accelerate slash what is it called, something 60 and Fletche, and then just weaving in the corpse on corpse and dispersion a bit more. Like if you know you're about to pop manification, you should be weaving in the corpse on corpse and dispersion prior to manification, because then it's free damage because they reset. So it's great. But yeah, no, it actually, like, I was really, it seems a little complicated to keep up with all of it, but you were really good with the rotations.